Welcome back to the Investor Empowerment Series radio show. This is episode number 70 with our special guest, Airbnb host Al Williamson. Al, thanks for being on the show today.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it. I know we just kind of started conversing over the last week about what your business is like, and I thought, wow, what not better guest to have on the show than somebody that's exploring a totally unique and I would say somewhat new realm in the real estate investing world. So I really appreciate you taking the time today to be on the podcast and to benefit our listeners.
It's always an honor. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate it. So obviously we already touched on an Airbnb topic. I brought it to light, but I kind of want to hear a little bit more about your background and what got you into real estate investing, and then maybe what transitioned you. I'm assuming there was a transition into Airbnb, or did you just right out of the gate get going on Airbnb?
No. I started in 1996 when I got married. We got into a 3-unit building, kind of house hacking. Me and my new bride, and I'm a civil engineer, so I'm very analytical, and I love the whole idea of passive income and rental properties. It all made a lot of sense. But what I realized was that if I really took care of my properties, even if I did a lot of the maintenance myself, my before tax income wasn't that great, even though I had 3 units, and I was living in one. It just wasn't what I was expecting. And again, my goal was freedom. I wanted enough passive income to equal my expenses. Mm-hmm. So over the course, as I was, becoming a more experienced landlord and bringing more properties, I decided, especially in 2008, was when I really didn't have any choice, but to figure out how to make more income with the properties I already owned. That was my big quest. So I did a lot of research. I talked to a lot of people and invented some ideas myself, and I ended up writing a book called 40 Ways to Increase the Net Income of Your Rental Property. I was trying for 50, but I got 40, published that. And then when I was able to relax a little bit after I got the book written, and I realized, you know what, a lot of these extra income ideas are made possible because I was doing short-term rentals. Mm-hmm. And that short-term rentals gave me all the ability to do upsells and catch people that have more needs than people who are doing longer-term 1-year leases. They were more dynamic type of person. So because of that, when I realized that, I said, you know what, I need to double down on short-term rentals. If they're going to bring me in, if they're going to bring in 3 times the income on a net income basis than regular rentals, then I don't need so many rentals to become financially free to meet my goal. So That's what I did. I started to convert my longer-term rentals into short-term rentals, and building out systems and growing with as the technology grew and as the community of people looking for short-term rentals grew. So that's how I did it. And today I am home with my family and financially have more passive income than my expenses. So it's all good now.
No, that's awesome. So the couple points there that I think are really interesting is, man, I'm amazed how many people that are in the field of engineering to some capacity get into real estate. There's got to be some correlation there. Just exploring numbers, analyzing something, because it seems like every time I turn around, there's somebody showing up at my meetup or inquiring regarding a property that's interested in buying or renting it out, whatever it is, and it's engineers. Interesting. Tell me a little bit about the book. I didn't even know about this.
Okay, 40 Ways to Increase the Net Income of Your Rental Properties. This is on Amazon, but it's a great collection of ideas. I kind of came up with 12 buckets of ideas, and then I came up with different permutations of those inside those 12 buckets. Mm-hmm. And the buckets, most people know about. You can make extra income with your rentals if you have fees. That's a lot of landlords make their money off of late fees or pet fees or breaking your lease early fees if you want to leave. So there's all kinds of punitive fees, and then there's all kinds of privilege fees, like if you want to be your own parking spot, that's a privilege. There's fees associated with that. If you want whatever privilege you want, there's additional fees.
Okay.
For that. So
right.
There's punitive fees, and then there's beneficial privilege fees. That's just one bucket. And there's 12 other buckets. There's for example, short-term rentals was one of the buckets.
Sure.
That's just a bucket of flexible terms. You're flexing your terms, and
right.
Short-term rentals allows you to flex how long people stay, as well as all the other ways you customize your place for them.
Interesting. No, that's pretty cool.
Stuff.
Well, I'm curious myself to get a copy of that, so I'm going to probably check out Amazon when we hang up the call here. But that's pretty neat. So so this isn't your first go around with this end of the space, because I know later we're going to get into something you're offering to the listeners as a benefit to them if they're interested in learning more about how to become an Airbnb host. So pretty cool stuff. So let's dive a little bit more into what you're doing today. We kind of got the background. So what's your day-to-day business look like? I mean, what's your Airbnb business like, and what's your what type of benefit are you receiving as a result of that? I don't mean monetary, but I mean, tell me about your lifestyle and how it benefited you.
Well, let's talk about monetary as well as everything else.
Sure. Love it.
That. So my day-to-day is not very interesting. I'm running this thing for time freedom, so I optimize my business off of time freedom as well as income, so that I can, it's an engineering thing to do, right? Nerdy thing to do. Just want enough to cover my income, and then make a little bit more to have fun with the family. So I do longer term stays with my short term rentals. And I do my short-term rentals out of my 8-unit apartment complex. So I have an apartment complex now, 8 units, and in there I have 3 longer-term stays, traditional landlording stays, and 5 short-term rentals. Okay, and these short-term rentals are month-longs at a time. So given it's 30 days or more. I don't do shorter stays than that.
Okay.
Typically. Okay. So that's enough for me to cover my expenses for my family. So that's how it is. Instead of getting 100 rentals,
right,
I'm able to do it with just one building.
Right.
So of course we take great care of that building. So it's very manageable, and it's not a lot of. If you're looking for a lot of excitement, it's not that. It's just very steady, and it gives you an opportunity to do a really good job there. So that's the first thing I do, is just keeping those filled, which isn't too hard. For that building, people stay for 3 months at a time.
Okay.
So I just kind of stay in charge of that. And I'm also, one of my challenges for my blog readers and for my short-term rental community that I kind of run is the rental arbitrage piece. Is seeing if setting up a business from scratch that creates a $10,000 of reoccurring monthly income. How to do that. That's another experiment of mine. Is let's start from scratch and document publicly that we're going to scale it all the way up to $10,000 of reoccurring income within 2 years, and then write and tell people about the obstacles we had and what we learned and all that good stuff.
Is that currently out there on the interweb for people to review? Like you said, blog. So I assume it's an ongoing piece.
I talk about it generally on my site, but more detailed inside our private Facebook group for those people who want the coaching and training program that we have. So Right now I'm at, I'll be bringing on my 6th one today. and we started 6 months ago. So I've been bringing on one a month.
Mm-hmm.
And that business model goes, you keep all your profits inside the business and reinvest it.
Now,
and then you have funds to buy the next one or to get the next rental arbitrage. But we probably should talk about what rental arbitrage is, right?
That's exactly what my question was going to be. Let's talk about that term, which is new to me in the last month, of rental arbitrage.
Okay. So rental arbitrage means, let's say you were a traditional landlord and you have a rental property that's in a good location. I would approach you and ask if I could rent your place for my corporate housing business.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I do it. And right now, I bring business travelers, is who I focus on. And then if you agree, then we sign a 1-year lease or a 2-year lease together. And then I would furnish the place, your rental, and then I would attract different clients to it who are using short-term rental travel agencies like Airbnb and VRBO. I would attract those people to stay at the place you own but I control.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And usually I'm bringing in 2 and 3 times more than I pay you.
Okay.
So I bring the money in and I pay you what we agreed on, and I keep the difference. So that's the arbitrage.
Mm-hmm.
Arbitrage, as if banks do this all the time. They get your money at 0.5%, and then they loan it out for 4 and 6%, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they keep the difference. It's just an arbitrage.
Yeah, sure.
So same thing, but just with rentals.
Interesting. Do you find that there's a lot of resistance from traditional landlords when you approach them or contact? I'm assuming you call them off of an ad on some, Craigslist or Zillow or whatever. I mean, how often are you getting the phone hung up on you?
When you're first starting, you're going to get a lot of no's.
Right.
Some people have gone to 100 calls, and some people have got a yes after only 8 calls. But it's all on how well we're learning that if you know who you're going to be placing,
right?
Like if you're just serving IT professionals and you're talking to your landlord about you using this place just for IT professionals, that's a whole lot. You'll get a lot more success than if you're saying, "Hey, I'm just going to use your place for Airbnb."
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Then they feel really scared. But if you tell them specifically, if you identify who you're going to serve first and build those relationships first, then you have a lot more. You get a lot more yeses quicker.
Interesting.
Otherwise, it's just a kind of a numbers game. Sales, you got to do 100 calls to get a yes.
Sure.
And then another 100 calls, but you're going to get them.
Mm-hmm.
There's landlords in all kinds of different situations. One thing that surprised me is that some people just get rentals just to preserve their wealth. They're not really interested in making all the income they can.
Mm-hmm.
Because that extra work doesn't sound of making additional income doesn't sound interesting to them. They rather be on their yacht. They just want their money protected. It's just a diversified way of preserving their wealth, right?
Right. Sure.
Those people will say yes to you as long as you take care of their place and whatever you want to do. Just keep the money coming. Just pay me my monthly rent. I'm fine. Go ahead and do that. So you'll run into those people after a bunch of phone calls. And from there, then you will be able to get their next property and their next property and so on and so forth.
Yeah,
your rate of yeses go up. Yeah,
I'm familiar with that situation because I had to have my captain actually drop me off at the dock this morning so I could make it in time for the podcast this afternoon. So yeah, it's I could see where that could be important to some people that are looking to preserve their wealth. Yeah, totally kidding there.
That's right.
I'd love to say that was true though.
Right.
So is it more appealing for so I'm a sucker for a long-term lease. Like I try to rent out. I'm a very traditional landlord. That's why this topic is not only interesting to me, but I'm like, wow, if it interests me, it's got to interest the podcast listeners.
Yeah.
You know, are you finding in those types of situations you're better off saying, hey, I'll go 3 years, I'll go 5 years, or are you want to test the waters a little bit more before you'd actually commit to a longer-term leasing situation?
Now, when you're just starting, you want to keep it to 1 year.
Okay.
But after you have some relationships, some longer term relationships with, let's say, now again, my focus is business travelers, and because it's what can happen here in Sacramento, California, where I live. If I was in a resort area, I would focus on tourists, okay, or something, or maybe a combination thereof. So I'm just talking about what works for me and for the majority of people in the Bible Belt who aren't on coastal. We don't have coastal opportunities, okay?
Sure.
So for us, I compete against Extended Stay America. That's who my arch enemy is.
Okay, that's a big one.
So if they're around, then I'm going to compete against them for their business travelers. That's essentially it. If they're not around, that means the research isn't there. That maybe my business model won't be successful in that area. But if there is, Extended Stay America specifically, because they have the funds to do the market research, and that research says that 18 days stays are viable here in this location. So that's what the presence of Extended Stay America tells me. Okay. And that tells me, so if an average of 18 days is viable because of the very existence of that extended stay, then that means that some of those stays are 30-day stays, and some of them are less.
Sure.
So I'm saying I'm going to compete for them on those people who are staying 30 days or more. So that's a nutshell of my whole business plan and why these arbitrages where I get one and I save up all the profits that this short-term rental is making until I can afford to take the funds and invest in another one, and then the profits from those two build up. Okay. Then so it's happening faster and faster. You see what I'm saying? Because those two profits, I get a third, then all three of them, the profits from all three of them are growing, so I can get a fourth, and so on and so forth. So it's rinse and repeat. But you're compounding on yourself so that you can get to reoccurring income. After you get to 20, so just theoretically, you don't have to have that many. But say you want $10,000 of reoccurring income. If that is your goal, then essentially you need 20 of these arbitrages with $500 spreads.
Sure.
If you just do the math, just straight math, okay? If you can get larger spreads, then you don't need so many of them. But so that's what I'm doing very publicly. I'm trying to grow it up. What do I need to do, and what kind of technologies or business practice can I do so that I don't need 20 of those arbitrages to get to 10,000? And how can I do it within a year instead of 2 years? That's what I do during the day is think about that and learn about that and invent ways of how to make it so that a waiter at Chili's can go and follow this plan and create a $10,000 reoccurring income. That's what I'm trying to do.
No, I love it. That's awesome.
That's what's exciting to me.
Absolutely. That's exciting to me too. Definitely exciting to me. Who doesn't want to try to create something like that? And so I have a couple follow-up questions regarding the processes of the arbitrage, we'll call it. The roof starts leaking, you call the main landlord to get it fixed, right?
Yeah, That's right. I call a long-term landlord like you, who I'm renting it from,
right,
and stick you with the bill. That's right.
Okay, so it's interesting because you're probably I assume you're altering the unit just a bit at a minimum, other than furnishing it. There's got to be some things.
Typically, just furnish it. Sometimes I upgrade around all the electrical outlets. I do that myself just because I just want them grounded.
Sure.
I like three prongs, and
Makes sense.
And I want my business travelers to have everything, all the conveniences.
Yeah, no, that
because I'm competing against the United States of America. They have three prongs. I need three prongs.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's a great point. What about the paperwork side? I mean, is this like a sublease situation then, or how do you approach that end of it with a lease with a landlord?
Yeah, so we essentially modify the lease. For you've heard of a wrap mortgage before, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And you've heard of a master lease type of agreements before.
Correct.
So it's the same thing. People oftentimes are scared of it, but it's done every day in many different situations. It's just another term to negotiate. I like to say it's not one of the 10 Commandments that you can't break. Mm-hmm. There is no thou shalt not sublease coming down from God. It's just it's just an agreement. It's just a clause. Right.
Absolutely. Sure. And it's anybody ever renege on the deal and say let's say you've got a 3-month stay or a 1-month stay scheduled, and all of a sudden the landlord freaks out about it because they happen to drive by and see some unfamiliar faces out and walking into the property or anything? That's just a curious question.
For me, my business model is business travelers.
Mm-hmm.
So they see BMWs in their driveway.
Right. Right.
They see nice rental cars, and they see people who are traveling away from their families who just want to come home and unpack. They don't make any noise. They don't know anyone. There's no parties going on. It's all your most desirable client.
No, that absolutely makes a lot of sense now that you say it like that. I mean, it's probably one of those situations where they never hear from you, and they never hear from so they never hear from a tenant, and they're happy to accommodate what you've provided for them, I would think.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the way it's going. That's the way it is shaping up to be for us, and with our target focus of just business travelers. We're ending up with more people offering us their places than we want right now.
Well, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm. It is. I didn't see it being like that when I started out, but that's one reason I like to do things myself, but actually do the experiments myself, and learn as I'm doing it. It's a big, scary goal, and I have to live it out myself. So since I don't need additional money to cover my basic expenses, I have the luxury of doing that, just as if someone who has their job in Red Lobster, as a waiter,
mm-hmm.
Hopefully he can cover his or her basic expenses with that, and then follow this module, this program on the side.
Right.
And not take any money out of it until it hits their reoccurring number that they were looking for to replace their job.
And you know what I really love about what you just said in this last couple sentences was the fact that you have to do it and live it for yourself first. Before what I'm hearing you say is you're not going to advocate for something unless you've actually experienced it. So you're down there you're in the trenches, working through this process, developing a method, a business plan with goals on the back end, and as you reach those goals or the next step of the ladder is achieved, not only are you documenting it, you're preparing something that can be duplicated again by someone else, and you're the living proof of it. So what better way to help someone achieve their financial or their time freedom, as you put it earlier, than to actually be the guy who's done it first. I mean, I think that's a great point. And
that's exactly right.
Yeah, and that tells me you're a very genuine person. I think that's awesome, because there are a lot of individuals out there who profit on, basically pitching a concept that's been regurgitated out there 10,000 times. And, they've got the greatest new twist. You get an email in your inbox every morning from somebody from across the country telling you that they've got the next best secret to make more money in real estate. Where in your case, not only are we talking about how you've done it, we're going to outlay how they can learn more about how they can do it for themselves, and you're actually doing it, which I think is incredible. So great comment, and I appreciate that about you. I think that's awesome.
Well, thank you. It was the first, the book, The 40 Ways.
Mm-hmm.
That was a result of me looking for ways to collect additional income from your rental properties, ancillary income, side income. I wanted to collect or generate enough side income to pay the mortgage without using the tenant's rents.
Sure.
So that was the goal, and we publicly did that. It took me 7 years to get it all to make it happen, but publicly demonstrating that it was possible, where people didn't think it was possible. That just fires me up. If you tell me I can't do something, you may be like this too. Then I have all the energy I need. I got all the energy I need to prove you wrong. So that's a lot of fun to me.
Yeah, I just had flashbacks of my dad when I was in my teenage years. Yes, so telling me what I couldn't do, and how I was going to do it. But no, that's awesome. That's a great point. I love that. So, kind of changing gears a little bit. You said you're based out of Sacramento. You've got your 8-unit apartment building there. Are you focusing your main everything you're doing with the business traveling side of the business in Sacramento, or have you ventured out of that net market there?
No, I just do it in Sacramento. The goal is to create an decentralized extended stay in Sacramento around this particular park. That's the premier park in Sacramento.
Okay.
So that's really my focus, because I'm doing everything as a lifestyle. I don't want to be traveling all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be able to respond to if someone's toilet is clogged. I don't go there, but if say they have a hair in their sink, I just want to be able to stop by and quickly clean it out, and they're delighted because it happened that same day. Give that high service. So for me, first of all, I'm a geek. I love fixing things, so I enjoy doing that. And there's not much for me to do, but being close to my rentals allows me to do that.
Sure. No, that does make sense. That's where I was kind of leading.
That works for,
yeah. I was leading my next question as to, I was educating myself on some of the material that you've provided, and I'm on Craigslist last night, and I'm looking at what's out there in areas that. Well, that was basically how my brain was working. I'm thinking to myself, all right, I want to be able to do this in Key West, right? And the people that know me who listen to podcasts are going to giggle right now because I just said that. But so I'm on Craigslist. I'm looking at housing that's available, and I find a studio, a 500 square foot studio that is actually on the water for $825 a month. Comes with so you tell me what you think of this, and this to me is kind of exciting. And I'll tell you what I did about it. But it's a small studio apartment with ocean access, has a small dock for a boat and its own private beach. It goes to list what the landlord is not looking for in a tenant, such as drugs and parties. And it says tenant must have a job, has a small kitchenette, has free Wi-Fi and cable, utilities included. Pets are allowed with small non-refundable deposit, and parking available. It says under-house parking, so I assume it's like on some type of elevated property or something. But So right away I'm thinking, all right, this might be a perfect rental arbitrage situation. And I start trying to formulate how I'm going to contact this individual. It's actually right off of a great scuba and snorkeling, like a dive area as well, and down in the Keys. So I send an email and I say, hey, I'm looking to expand my corporate housing type business, which I'm going to fully admit that I borrowed that from you. And typically we're and this is via email. We're housing business travelers and people that are looking for longer term but longer term stays, but on a short term basis. And I'm looking to expand that portfolio. If you're interested, I'd love to see some more photos, because ironically, the Craigslist post had 0 pictures on there. Because now I'm more curious.
Sounds like a mom and pop.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I composed the email and actually looked at it again this morning, because I wrote it last night, didn't send it, looked at it again this morning, made some tweaks to it, because I'm thinking, okay, if this was me, and again, I'm like you said, it's probably a mom and pop type situation. Maybe they live next door. Maybe it's they're involved in the day to day. But it's my first attempt at some type of a rental arbitrage without knowing as much as I need to know. I'm always same as you. I'm going to go give it a shot and figure it out for myself, right or wrong.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Maybe I'll follow up with the listeners if I get a response back, either while we're sitting here or at some point in the next couple of days, and I'll go over that. But even though it's in the Keys, which is probably not the most ideal situation, considering I'm in Chicago, it'll at least give me an excuse to maybe try it out and see what happens. I don't know if it's going to work, but I'm thinking the resources are out there. And
let me ask you some questions.
Oh, please.
Let's dive into this.
Yeah.
So, I would my action call, my call to action for that email would be, can we talk on the phone?
Sure.
Get them on the phone, because they're mom and pop. Start doing business human to human as much as you possibly can. Also, do you have staff or handyman, or who do you have boots on the ground already there in the Keys?
Nobody yet.
So you're gonna want to establish that as that's gonna be your target area, and your target area should be a spot that sparks joy in your life.
Sure.
That's really key, because you want everything to bring you more happiness. So not just the money, it's got to bring you more happiness. So start building relationships with that handyman there, and have, so that they can drive by and take a look at this address, and do business human to human, and then it can definitely work out, because the rate of growth for the people who want to be digital nomads is just skyrocketing.
Sure.
People would much prefer to take their laptops and keep up with their productivity at work, but travel at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
That whole pre-retirement that Tim Ferriss and the 4-Hour Work Week made so popular, there's people actually taking action on that lifestyle. So if I was a digital nomad, I guess I'm a blogger, so that would be, but I'm not, I'm a homebody. I would definitely book your place as long as it had Wi-Fi, and live that way for a little while, for sure.
Sure.
I think it'd be a good spot.
Well, it definitely checks that box you brought up about brings you joy, where when you're going to get into this, like, find a location that you're going to enjoy visiting or being involved in, is kind of what I was hearing from you. And anytime I hear anybody, once I hear Keys, Florida Keys, whatever, like a little exclamation goes up on the top of my head. I'm like, wow, yeah, let's talk about it. I want to hear about it. I love what you're doing. Now it's funny that we're talking about Florida.
Do it.
Oh yeah, I didn't do the human to human yet, but I do have the phone number, and the only reason I didn't,
do this.
And I know that's the recommended route. I sent the email as kind of a precursor. Plus, it was like 9:30, 10 o'clock last night, and as we've already demonstrated from my inability to figure out the difference between Central Standard and Eastern Time, I wasn't quite sure what time it was at that point. So I shot the email off this morning, and I thought, all right, it's literally opened up on my my internet browser right now, so it's not going anywhere, so I can actually make the phone call and follow back up and see if I can get some interest on that. So that's kind of cool. Another story I want to bring up, if you don't mind. We kind of talked about it before we started the actual call, but I had mentioned to you that individual that I met at a conference. I was actually in Dallas, had a fundraising conference, and I met an individual who is, I'm not going to say similar, but he has a corporate housing short-term rental business model, and he lives in Miami, and he is buying condos in Chicago, which is naturally why we kind of hit it off, because I'm like, Chicago, where in Chicago? And I was amazed to hear the type of net returns he was making when he's buying a condo in a, we'll say, less than desirable area, at least from my knowledge of the city, and putting, buying a condo for $15,000, putting $20,000 in as a rehab and making it beautiful, and then creating a short-term rental business with it. He's done it 3 or 4 times, and it sounds to me like he's hit some pretty good numbers on a monthly basis just by doing this. And I asked him, and I just thought this was funny, and probably the only reason I'm bringing it up as an anecdotal type story is I said, but you're in Miami. Like, what are you doing buying in Chicago? Like, I'm the guy in Chicago. I'd be buying in Miami, or I'd be arbitraging in Miami so I could have, be a part of it. And it was amazing to see. So he's originally born and raised there. I'm born and raised in Chicago, and we both had the same attitude about, he's like, oh no, I don't want to do anything in Miami. I can't stand Miami. Like, I don't want to do this there. He's like, I really like going to Chicago though. And I was like, wow. I was like, yeah, I would never do this in Chicago. I'd love to do it in Florida or Miami though. I don't know. Just interesting, right. your perspective from that individual and, maybe their life experiences and stuff like that. But
and he's got some insider knowledge too, that he's obviously got some insider knowledge and maybe a different support structure there as well. Yeah,
he might be somebody I should reconnect with. And originally when he was talking to me, I think his interest was finding out what I thought of the valuations of the properties, because he was actually, he wasn't doing arbitrage. He was actually buying, fixing up, and then, putting them in the short-term rental program. And he was, having a hard time figuring out what he thought the places were now worth. And I'm not sure if he was, maybe for a refi or what his plan was, but
he's not going to be able to refi with Airbnb money.
Right.
That's the thing. You need a track record. Also, one thing about Chicago, I did some research for one of my students there before, is the seasonality of your rentals.
Sure.
There's big seasonality swings for the demand in hotels.
Okay.
Hotel pricing, and even if you look at the Government Service Administration GSA.gov, which picks out the different hotel rates nightly per month over all over the United States, so it tells what the government rate at a different hotel is at different times of the year. That's what it'll give. So if you look at that, you'll see big swings in Chicago. And that'll tell you that sometimes of the years he can make that $3,000 net.
Right.
But there's this downside too. He's not telling you the whole story.
Okay.
I'd be surprised if he's telling you the whole story.
Sure.
If he is getting that every month, all 12 months, then he's doing something different than the hotels and other operators there.
Mm-hmm.
And when we mentioned before we got on the phone, we talked about AirDNA.co as far as their analytics.
Love to talk about this.
If you look on there, they have a heat map on their calendar. They have a year calendar, and they mark some of the dates on the calendars with a green or with a red.
Okay.
And you'll be able to look at that data, and you have to pay for it. Just get this version for that. Could be you can get it by zip code, and might be $20 or so.
Mm-hmm.
But you can see that when you have a month that has a bunch of red in it, that you're not gonna make much that month.
Right.
You're gonna need to use the profits from the times that it was solid green all the way across to supplement those times that is red. So that's a great resource, and that's how you read that seasonality map. So before you go off and invest in an area, you got to know that.
Yeah, this is
doing short stays.
This is a great tidbit that I really think we need to dive into maybe just a touch more. This website that Al mentioned is www.airdna.co, not .com, it's .co, and it's basically an analyzer of the short-term rental market, right? Tell me if I'm wrong, because I haven't actually been able to.
It tells you. It's
just Airbnb.
Just from Airbnb.
So you
not from other websites. So it's just, VRBO, HomeAway, and Expedia. All those other ones may have a different trend, but this is just Airbnb.
And it tells you depending, you can choose a market, you can choose a city, you can choose a market, and it tells you what type of rental, not only the amount of availability. I said that wrong. How often places are getting rented. It's telling you the pricing, the size of the property, or the location. Is that right?
Yes, it'll give you the locations, and it also will tell you the top 10, who the top 10 operators are in that area. So you'll be able to go study their listings and mimic them if you choose to.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, what a great what a great little piece of information. That, I mean, just on an exploratory level, like I would say I'm at this point. I mean, just to be able to log into something like this and acquire some of that data is going to really could be a big driver in what you're going to do with this type of a business if you choose to get into it. So I think that's a great tidbit you provided.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
All right, cool. So there's got to be some good and some bad and the ugly in this whole business. Why don't you let's hear some more stories about how this works for you? I mean, what's one of the best experiences you've had as an Airbnb or a short-term rental host, and something maybe the listener would be curious to benefit from? Or worst.
Well, so I'm an avid guest as well as a host. I travel. When I travel around, I always stay at an Airbnb and see if I can find their best practices. So there's been some good ones and some bad ones, and then of course I'm a host, and then as a host, I focus on longer term stays. So that's how I operate, which is different than the majority of people who are hosts. So I see the world as in two buckets, really. There's the business traveler who's my target, and then there's the tourists that come. And the tourists generally stay at vacation rentals and even people's guest rooms. That's where a lot of activity are. And if you are sharing your guest room or your vacation rental, your behavior is completely different than if you are servicing a business traveler. There's people who are looking for different. They're looking for different enjoyments and more time for more relationships. When they're sharing your guest room, they want to get to know you and things like that. So that's the expectation. If you are a landlord and you're providing a entire home to a business traveler, the business traveler does not want to know you or hear from you or see you. So it's a different expectations. And also, the tourists, they're paying out of their own pockets for their trip. That's how I classify tourists. Business travelers their companies are paying for them to stay. So they have a different mindset on how price sensitive they are. You follow what I'm saying?
Absolutely, yeah.
So there's some big differences, swings. So I focus on those people who have that mind. I say that because there's people who have a different mindset, and if you understand that, you can understand that the business traveler, if you make your place self-sufficient, self-explanatory, and it's within their allowance, what their employer says that they can spend, then you're going to have nearly no ugly.
Mm-hmm.
So all that ugly is associated with the tourists.
Sure. So a piece of advice maybe would be to, again, you want to be a more successful.
Well, that's not for you though. Because you're going to be on the Keys though.
What's that?
If you're on the Keys, then if you're on the Florida Keys, you're going to be dealing with tourists.
Yeah.
So you behave in a way that delights them and that amazes them, and that's a different way of behaving. You are going to have some good, bad, and ugly. You're going to have a lot more variation, and because people are price sensitive, and they're also looking to some people. There's a percentage of the people who are looking to see if they can get a price reduction out of you and all that type of thing.
Sure.
And there's a percentage of them that are going to party and get loud and out of control. There's just a percentage of them that are going to do that. It can be a small percent. But when that small percent comes, that's when your neighbors will make that one out of 100 into something that ends up on the 5 o'clock news or newspapers across the country.
Thanks for squashing my Florida Keys dreams. Okay, all right. I guess I got to look at a different location. I got to study this airdna.co website and figure out where I want to be.
Well, I don't want to unframe it. I don't want to misframe it.
Right.
If you are doing a remote, and you never met your guests, and you do want to set it up turnkey, then out of that whole spectrum of people that you're going to attract, there is going to be, the statistics say there are going to be some.
Sure.
So as long as you are accept that and accept the risk that goes along with that sum, then go for it. Build your systems in place so that you can deal with that. You do need a good team on the ground to deal with that.
Oh, I'm sure.
It's those people who don't have their systems in place and have that small percentage that goes crazy, they kind of mess it up for everyone else.
Yeah, I'm sure. Oh, great point. Well, I really...
More than you want to know. Yeah.
What's that?
More than you wanted to know. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. No, that's, I'm pipe dreaming here. So, of course, I'm going to just start exploring all the cool places that I want to be, just like you said, that's something that I would enjoy. And I think part of it, too, for me, just like you, is I got to explore things on my own and kind of figure it out a little bit. So if it happens to be that I'm testing the market in the Florida Keys and my end result is I'm in, Austin, Texas, then so be it. But, for right now, it's just kind of my first dipping my toe in the ocean, if you will, of trying to figure out how the arbitrage side of the business could work. Because I think part of that's going to be just, you mentioned earlier, 1 in 10, for every 10 calls you make, you might get one that's interested in hearing more about what you're proposing to accomplish with your business plan as a landlord. And,
right.
I believe wholeheartedly that a lot of that's going to come with time and experience. So even if I'm shooting blanks for the first 15 calls or whatever, it's going to grow my experience level to a point where, maybe by the 16th and then the 20th and the 23rd call, I'm getting actual better response rates as far as, the landlord's actually being interested in hearing what I have to say. So, hey, for me, I'll test it out. Right. I'll test it out in the Keys. We'll see what happens.
So if you want that goal of recurring income, if you want it, there's always a cost. It doesn't cost you much, but it's going to cost you some personal development.
Sure.
It's going to cost you to get over your self-limiting beliefs and be able to pick up the phone and make a cold call. It's all basically you have to develop yourself to where you are worth $10,000 of recurring income before you get there. So, and there's always the development portion. It's always picking up the phone. It's always learning and feeling uncomfortable before. That's how you build the cash flow. That's if you're not willing to do that. I'm not talking about you. Just talking to our listeners here.
Mm-hmm.
If you aren't willing to kick down doors for yourself and for your family and pick up the phone and do what's uncomfortable to talk to people, to create the cash flow, those are the things that create the cash flow. If you're not willing to do that, then you may want to pursue the ownership route and not arbitrage.
Sure.
You may just want to buy your own rentals and convert them to short-term rentals, and then you don't have to do all that type of thing.
Sure. Makes sense.
It's a lot more money. It's going to take you a lot longer to get to financial freedom that way.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely still faster than traditional landlording.
Yeah, no, makes sense. So what would you say? Let's talk. We talked about numbers briefly in the beginning. We never really got into it. You mentioned on arbitrage looking for a $500 spread. What?
Right.
For the benefit of the listener, let's tease them a little bit with some of the opportunities here. I mean, what would you say? Give me some real numbers on how this can work for somebody who's doing a short-term rental business. I mean, what can they expect, maybe on a one-bedroom apartment or condo or whatever they're doing, or give me some examples of your experiences with those numbers. Is that okay?
I think if you are an owner, if you are an owner of a property, 1 bedroom or more, and you're doing it, you're doing a good solid job of being a host, you should expect an additional $1,000 per month per unit or per house.
Okay.
Okay.
Beyond what the normal rent would have been?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you should expect additional $1,000 net.
Okay.
You can do much better than that. You can do much better than that, but that's what, with seasonality and everything in place. And also, if that doesn't sound good to you as a long-term owner, then this is not something you want to pursue.
Sure.
If $1,000 doesn't sound good to you, and also you should never put yourself in a position where you need to do short-term rentals to pay your mortgage or your expenses.
Right.
So you got to make sure that you don't buy with that expectation of doing that. You have to buy with market rents because you have to preserve traditional landlording as your fallback position, and you got to be able to cash flow as a traditional landlord before you pursue.
No, that's an incredible point you just brought up that I wasn't even thinking about, because of course my head's in the clouds over this concept, all excited about what I want to do with it. But yeah, when you analyze, what you're saying is, as investors, when we're analyzing a potential purchase, let's say, of a rental property, analyze it based on the real market rent number. So if it rents for $1,500 a month, for example, then those what you base your numbers off of. However, you come up with your formula to analyze your properties that you're going to acquire or looking to acquire, and then the ice cream on top is going to be the fact if you convert it to a short-term rental, how that could be even more exponentially beneficial. But your fallback is always going to be that market rental, which I think is awesome. That's a great piece of advice.
Can I add a little more to that?
Oh, please.
Okay, so your traditional landlording is your fallback. If you add furnishings to it, you should be able to get 30% more on a long-term basis. Just renting it, just a regular traditional landlord renting a furnished unit, you should be able to get 30% more, okay?
Okay.
So from knowing that, so when you do short-term rentals or Airbnb, your fallback is doing long-term furnished rentals. And if you can't do that, then your fallback is traditional landlording.
Interesting. Yep.
So that's the mindset you need to have when you purchase that. You need to maintain those two safety nets underneath you. Okay, you need to have that mindset. Mm-hmm. Arbitrage is completely different because you're not taking the maintenance piece with you, and the way you handle it and the decisions you make. Once you have a couple months of reserves as an arbitrage to pay your landlord, then you're good. You can just go to town. You can just go get as many as you want, as long as you reserve some, as long as you can have some type of fallback plan.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You're not responsible for the exterior paint or the building envelope, the roof, the water heater. You don't need a lot of reserves anymore, like a traditional landlord would.
Right. Oh, great point. Question regarding that just made me think of something. So if you do have a situation where you've got your traditional landlord on his yacht off the coast of Bermuda, and the water heater craps out and is leaking water actively, for example, on the floor of your arbitrage unit, do you build something? Do you build a clause into your lease about how you will go in and make certain repairs if they're like an emergency level thing?
No, I don't. One reason why is I don't like to change their lease too much that they're comfortable with. That's kind of a poison pill thing. Okay. There are fair housing laws that are in California. The fair housing laws allow you to get reimbursed for those things.
Interesting.
And you should always go through and, this is traditional business. You call, you text, you email to document what's going on. And then under emergency situations, absolutely, if they're not responsive,
Mm-hmm.
and you've done the things that they told you to do, you can't just let water keep pouring into the house.
Right. Right.
You shut off the water and take care of the emergencies and things like that. That's another reason why a boots on the ground team is critical to your Florida Keys operation.
Yes.
If you, I mean, so my focus in life is to come up with my dream and then build it so it happens. So let's take your Florida Keys things. I'm serious about getting you there. I first thing I want you to do is to make some contacts with some handyman and and start building those relationships. And then you got people to, if someone gets locked out, you got someone to be a face to that landlord all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It will make your dream happen quicker.
Yeah, it's interesting you brought that up. You brought me back like 20 years in time here, because that's something that I now preach to newer investors who are getting into the landlording business. Is, the first thing you need to do is build your team. Create that team, whether it's brokers, attorneys, handymen, contractors, financial team as far as, accountants and lenders. And here's me going on Craigslist and looking for properties in Key West without even thinking of any of that stuff. But no, that's great.
That's fine. It's all getting you emotion. But here's another thing that I want you to do, your Craigslist thing. But these handymen know motivated landlords.
Oh yeah, good point. Sure, because they're dealing with the problems.
They're just and they're able to refer you to so much more stuff because they see things on a completely different level than anyone else. Mm-hmm. So as you do your Craigslist thing, build your handyman blue collar technology.
There you go. I like it. I'll start working on that too. I promise. So we covered a bunch of stuff. I want to make sure we don't forget about adding that opportunity for these listeners to, hear about what you can offer if they're interested in learning more about this type of the business or this type of business. You want to talk about that?
Oh yeah. So what I have is a coaching and training program that is based off of what I actually do, and it's on its third version of it because I always update it based on my students' feedback. Mm-hmm. So it includes a full-blown training on exactly how to get started, all those details about marketing that we covered. And then it's got some bonuses of group calls, monthly group calls with the whole community input on your ideas, as well as you're getting to learn from them. And just have oftentimes we aren't successful with our goals because we don't have a positive reinforcing community around us. We have people who tell you can't do stuff. So not only do we talk to each other, we have a very active private Facebook group that keeps you motivated, and so that you can arbitrage on the Florida Keys. You need people telling you can do that.
Right, sure.
And then it comes with me. I do a brainstorming session and get started session with people. It's usually an hour of time to really map out how they can do what they want to do, what sparks joy in their lives, Mm-hmm. And it comes with lots of email support too, so you get fast answers to your questions. So all that together, and whether you're don't own any rental property at all, just want recurring income and replace your job. This course is, we're building it for that person who's a waiter or a waitress, to teach them all the way how to do it. And if you're a rental owner, it teaches you how to make an additional $1,000 per month for every unit that you have if you wanted to go through business travelers. Mm-hmm. If you are a house flipper, this teaches you how to make additional money while you're holding under property before it's sold. After you completed the place and before it's sold, however time you want to wait, you can cover your costs and make an additional $1,000, $3,000. So, that changes a lot of things. Just that piece right there allows people to buy flippers to buy things a little more expensive than the next guy, and win more. So it's a very lucrative piece of technology for that.
Yeah, that's I'm going to make the mind blown noise because that's crazy. I didn't even think about that because I'm sitting on one right now that I just finished, got under contract, won't be closing for another, I don't know, almost 2 months, month and a half with the buyer.
Yeah.
I mean, I could, and it's a beautiful house. I wonder if I could test it out on that. That's a good idea.
You can make a couple $1,000s right there.
That's a good idea.
So if you don't own anything, you can retire you. If you're a landlord, it means $1,000 per month per unit. And if you're a flipper, it's a couple $1,000s per every flip that you make. All that's for less than $1,000, $997.
That's the cost of the course.
That's the price of the course. That's the cost of the course. It pays for itself in no time at all.
Sure.
Would you? Yeah. Would you pay $997 to retire? That's what gives you the ability. Okay, so to get the course, you go to airbnblandlord.com, airbnblandlord.com, and you enter your financial information, and then download all the course materials, and schedule a call with me, and we'll do that getting started.
Sure.
I like to call it 60 minutes to $6,000. We want to map out how you can make $6,000 quickly. And then you have all of us holding you accountable to that to make sure that you accomplish your goal. Because, a lot of times people have the desire, but and sometimes they even know what to do. They just don't do what they know.
Right.
And they don't have that, and they don't have a coach to carry them along. They just need, oftentimes people just need a coach just to get them to where they need to be.
Right.
That's what we provide, that piece of it, which is some soft skills, but it's really what's needed to help you get there.
Absolutely. No, that's great. So I'll put that link in the podcast notes there in the description. So that'll be on there at the end of the description, and then anybody who's interested could obviously, schedule a call with you if they have any more questions potentially, right? Or just go on the website and figure out what they
shoot me an email.
Yeah, shoot you an email. Yep. That's great. So if they do want to contact you via email, what's the best way to get a hold of you, or the email address?
Al at leadinglandlord.com.
Okay, Al at leadinglandlord.com. All right, I have. I think that's great. I'm excited. I myself am a student of Al's because this is something I've never actually experienced in my career as a real estate investor, and it's something to me that is so foreign, we'll call it, even though I have stayed at some Airbnbs, and I plan on continuing to do so. As a matter of fact, over the next few months, I have a couple that I'm in the process of scheduling. But for me as an investor, I would call myself experienced in landlording as well as flipping and wholesaling. I just don't know what I don't know. So a good investor or anyone who's got a successful career is constantly reinvesting in themselves, continuing to educate themselves. So I've gone through the course. I haven't scheduled my call with Al. Whoops. Although we have talked a few times now. And I'm enjoying everything I'm learning, and it's definitely opening up some new opportunities. So you're getting your Joe Mueller recommendation here that I think it's definitely worth pursuing if you're interested in this type of a business. So one last question for you, Al, and that is, that's something that I occasionally ask my listeners who I feel like might have something interesting to bring to the table. Well, you know what? Now it's going to be two questions. First question, any advice that you would give to an investor if you were to look back over the course of your career that you could have done differently from the beginning?
I would say, and this sounds so self-serving, but this is what I would say, is to advance as an employee, you go and get degrees and certificates, things like that. As an employee, that's how you get promoted.
Right.
As an entrepreneur, someone seeking financial freedom, you go get coaching.
Sure.
Don't be so cheap, because I am a very cheap guy. bad mental mindset. My dad went through the Great Depression and all. If you want financial freedom, then invest in your coaching to get you to the next step.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you quickly advance. That's what I would share.
Okay, great. Thank you. No, great point. Great point. And a lot of that goes on. You just got to figure out what niche you want to be in and find the right people who are out there to advance you forward in that, that particular level of the business, we'll call it. So for those interested in the short-term rental aspect, I think you're the guy. Next question. Any books that you would recommend to real estate investors? And it doesn't matter if it's real estate related or short-term rental or, what's on your bookshelf right now that you've recently read?
If you're a real estate guy or a landlord, then there's a book called The Wealthy Code by George Anton.
Right. Okay.
He talks about understanding that it's really the financing that's making you the cash flow, not the brick and mortar, and how to look at different loans and look at the spread between the different rate of returns. He gives you the tools that you need to be able to understand cash flow on a much more serious level.
Awesome. Okay. Anything else?
Of course, my book, but I'm not going to say that. Those are the things on my bookshelf. Of course, my book is if you're a landlord, you got to read 40 Ways to Increase the Net Income of Your Rental Property. It is the only collection of ancillary income ideas that's on the market, and it's been there since 2015. And it should make you extra $100 every month if you can't help but walk away with a way to reduce your expenses or increase your income. But without, you read that book, you're going to create an extra $100 per month.
You're going to sell at least one book for sure today. I guarantee that.
It's an easy sell, isn't it? It's an easy sell. Well, it's like, come on. There's so many ways to make more money besides just raising rents.
And
there really is.
Why reinvent the wheel? You've created something obviously that offers value to investors and landlords, and I don't know what the retail price of it is. I don't really care. I'm going to be
$15.
15, perfect. $15. I was going to say if you raise it to $99 or something as soon as we hang up, then we might have a problem, but that's okay. No, I think that's great. That's great, and the fact that you're an accomplished author is very, very, very intriguing to me as well. I think that's incredible. So, unless you have anything else you'd like to add in there, I want to go over some of the stuff we've kind of already brought forward just to summarize real quick as far as your contact info and how they can get more information about the course. And let's talk about your book, just the title again. I have it written down, but let's summarize real quick. So if they want to contact you directly to maybe if they have more questions, they would go to...
It's Al at leadinglandlord.com.
Perfect.
Quick email to me.
If they'd like to sign up for your course...
It's Airbnb landlord.com.
And if they want to purchase your book on Amazon, what's the title that they would want to search out?
It's 40 Ways to Increase the Net Income of Your Rental Property. Net income is all that matters.
Absolutely. Awesome. Al, I really appreciate your valuable time today. We spent probably a total of hour and a half going back and forth getting this thing done today, which I know time is money, and I know your whole goal in life is to be in control of your time. So thank you for taking the time out today to spend it with me and our listeners to the Investor Empowerment Series radio show.
Hey, this was fun. Let's do it again once you get your arbitrages up and going.
Oh, boy. Yeah, you're putting me to the test. I love it. Good idea. We can do that. Like I said, I'll follow up. Let's see what happens with this one inquiry I've made so far. I'll keep working on it, though. To me, that's like a perfect little that's a little nighttime project. The kids go to bed. Nothing's going on. I'm kind of like, do I do nothing? No, I'll go on the computer and start searching out some stuff, and that's typically how I do things anyway. When I've got we'll call it some free time, if that ever exists. At least in my world, I'll start working on it. So, again, Al, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for your time today.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. That's it for the Investor Empowerment Series radio show today, episode number 70. Special thanks to our guest, Al Williamson. Al, I will be talking to you soon, and I appreciate it again. Thank you.
All right.
All right.